Hello everybody, Digfig here, and welcome to my Thousands Cut Sorcerers build for Diablo 4's Open Beta. Now Dig, why do you call this the Thousand Blade Sorcerers build? That is because it revolves around ice blades and getting as many of these things out as you possibly can and abusing the enhancement on them that makes it so every 20 seconds of cooldowns you spend, you spawn another one. Now, before we get into the super entangled nitty-gritty of cooldown reduction that makes this thing just a spamming machine, we're going to talk about some pros and cons. Con number one, there isn't a single skill in my entire toolbar that uses any mana whatsoever. It's all mana free, so if you're one of those people that really doesn't like Sorcs the way they feel because they keep running out of mana, this build might be for you, because you can't even spend a single drop of mana. You can just throw the whole blue orb off the screen and it wouldn't matter. Pro number two, gear really doesn't matter. And pro number three, the more HP something has, the better this build does. That means open world bosses, amazing. Endgame dungeon bosses, amazing. Elites, amazing. And if you're in a group of any kind, the build just works amazingly. So, con number one, solo versus low HP mobs. If you don't cast your spells right and manage your cooldowns and manage your Nova with your auto attack combination, which we'll get into, you can kind of find yourself sitting here like, I'm in a lot of cooldowns. So it does take a little getting used to, but once you do, it flows really well and it feels really good. Con number two, it's not a Hydra build, so everyone's going to be like, what the heck you're doing? And then you're going to do 16 times more damage than they do, and they're going to be like, who the hell is that guy? Now there's a lot of things working together here, so I'm going to try and explain this, but first we're going to start off with the skill bar, then I'm going to try and go over the core mechanics of how and why this is working, then we're going to try and just break everything down of exactly what I'm doing. Now, starting with the skills on your toolbar, we're going to go with Lightning Spear, Ice Armor, Frost Nova, Teleport, Frost Bolt, and Ice Blades. Now, when you combine the cooldown costs of everything on your bar with this, every 20 seconds in cooldowns you spend, you spawn an Ice Blade on a random enemy. You spawn about 6 blades instantaneously, which is just the beginning of your ramp up. Now let's get into some of the nitty-gritty entanglement of all the cooldown stuff and why it works and how it works. First, you're going to start with the ice blades themselves. You're going to take this to the highest level you possibly can, and they have a built-in 30% chance to make an enemy vulnerable when they do damage to them, which is important here for this next stat. Enhanced ice blades cooldown is reduced by 1 second each time it hits a vulnerable enemy. So if you have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these things out, all hitting vulnerable enemies, you can see why the cooldown starts to just become a spinning bar. And when you combine that with Summon Ice Blades, 50% of Enhanced Blades cooldown reduction is applied to all your skills. That means every time one of these blades hits a vulnerable enemy, all your skills on your toolbar are getting a 0.5 second reduction of their cooldown. That's how it just starts to turn into a spammy build. Then if we come over here to our defensive skills, which are some of the primary skills here, we're going to look at Teleport first. You run at least 1 point in Teleport. I have 2 from my armor, so it's at 3, but it only needs to be at level 1. To unlock Enhanced Teleport. Teleport's cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds per enemy hit for up to 3 seconds. So you just teleport onto enemies to reduce the cooldown even more, which then allows you to spam it more, which then allows you to make more Ice Blades. There's going to be a repeating theme here. Then you're going to look at Frost Nova. Frost Nova is your primary thing, and you just need 1 point in it. I have 1 point for my armor, so it's at 2, but you only need 1 point here. Then you're going to get Enhanced Frost Nova. Killing enemies frozen by Frost Nova reduces its cooldown by 2 seconds. You're going to pop out of Frost Nova, freeze everything, your blades, and you are going to kill everything, and then this still is going to be reset. Your teleport is going to be reset. Everything's going to be just pumping cooldown reduction, and you're just like button mashing your keys, just blowing spells out everywhere, popping out more swords. It really gets out of hand. And Mystical Nova, Frost Nova is super important because you need that vulnerability on things. And every time you pop Frost Nova, it makes everything around you vulnerable, and it does it for 8 seconds on bosses, which you will never have an 8-second cooldown on your Frost Nova. So it's just a permanent vulnerability to everything around you on your Frost Nova. The final bit of cooldown we're squeezing out of everything is Elemental Attunement. Critical strikes have a 15% chance to reset the cooldowns of one of your defensive skills. This can only happen once every 10 seconds. So by every 10 seconds, almost on the dot, one of your defensive skills comes off cooldown, and you currently run 3 defensive skills. So just another blade, another set of blades just popping out of you every single time this pops. All of that combined makes just this cooldown blender machine of monsters. Now that I've tried to explain the core mechanics and how it all mashes together not so well, We're going to start all the way up the top, and I'm just going to talk things down here slowly. So if you kind of know things, you don't need to watch the rest of this because it's going to be pretty basic. But you're going to start at your core skills, and you're going to put 5 points into Frostbolt. This Frostbolt's actually really important here because you're going to chain this with your Nova to deal with a lot of trash mobs, and if you're playing solo, you're going to actually use this little combo almost more than your big combo when you come across bosses. And that is Frostbolt plus Enhanced Frostbolt, where Frostbolt has a 15% chance to explode on hitting chilled enemies, hitting surrounding enemies, but the chances increase to 100% against frozen enemies. So what you do is you gather up a big clump of mobs, you Frost Nova them all, you auto attack them, and it makes big explosions and kills all of them in 1 to 2 hits usually. And that's how you deal with trash mobs without putting all of your stuff on cooldown, because if you cast all of your spells and put everything on cooldown versus trash mobs that don't have a lot of HP, you don't get enough hits off to reset all your cooldowns before they die, and you just end up with an entire taskbar of 20-second cooldown. So you gotta be really careful about that. Then we're gonna move down to core skills. Oh wait, you don't put any points in core skills, I know. It's an odd one, but 0. Then in defensive, you're gonna put 1 point into lightning, 1 point into enhanced teleport, just to do the cooldown. You're gonna put 1 point into ice armor, just for the 20-second cooldown, and the barrier. The barrier is very important in this build, and you have the cooldown repeating so fast usually, you can mostly face tank things. If you put the health regen pants on top of this, which I had for a little while before I found better yellows and didn't transfer the stat over, you can face tank almost anything in the whole game. And you don't even use pots. Like, it's ridiculous. I didn't even upgrade my pot for most of the entire time of playing this because I just didn't need it. Then I can put 1 point in Frost Nova, and then I can put 1 point in Enhanced Frost Nova, and 1 point in Mystical Frost Nova. We already went over why, and it's just for the skill cooldown and the vulnerability being core to the build. Then you're going to work your way down to Conjuration, and you want as many points into Ice Blades as you possibly can, because this is your core damage. I cannot find it on gear to roll for the +2 stat, unfortunately, so I only have mine at 6. Then you're going to put 1 point in Enhanced Blades and 1 point in Summon Ice Blades. We already went over why. Now, this is where things get a little convoluted. I have +1 Lightning Spear on a piece of gear. If I didn't, I would have to take a point out of here or a point out of here, or I could take a point out of Precision Magic and apply it here just to make sure that I had Lightning Blades. It's Lightning Spear, not Lightning Blades. I don't know why I said that. Now, when it comes to Conjuring Mastery, this is where some people might want to do something different. If you have the maximum amount of summons you can possibly squeeze out of this thing up, Conjuring Mastery is better. If you can't do that, or don't do it, or want more of a sustained kind of damage instead of this swaying bursty, depending on how many you have out, you can put the 3 points into Glass Cannon instead, because this gives you about 18%, where at max you can get about 25 out of this, but it fluctuates depending on how many conjurations you have. I personally go for the try-hard mode of running Conjuring Mastery. I have 1 point in Precision Magic just because I had an extra point, and it's arguable if this is more important in Glass Cannon or here, but it just gives you a 5% increase to lucky hit chance, which helps the blades proc, and it helps some of my other skills proc for cooldown reduction. Wish we just had more skill points, but don't we all? Then lastly, we have the 3 points in Elemental Attunement, which we already went over why, and it's just to help with the skill cooldowns. That is all of your skills you have up here. It's questionable. You can pull out of Lightning Shield and put one into ultimates. I've done that in the past, and in World Bosses encounters, I go with the Ice Block, because that World Boss likes to one-shot everybody. And you can have this up like every 10 or so seconds, so you can almost face tank the World Boss. Figure that one out. Face tank the World Boss with this thing. But I'm going to highlight almost. I tried it, still died, but like you have a lot of leeway with your cooldowns here because you have some crazy defensives. Now that we've gone over the skills, let's go over the gear that I currently have, even though it's not that great, and just ignore my stat priorities, please and thank you. I'm a sorcerer with only 58 intelligence. But the only piece of gear I have on my character now that super helps this build out is Frost Nova Ganks, an additional charge, but the cooldown per charge is increased by 38. So this negative of increasing the cooldown actually helps us spawn more blades. And having 2 charges really helps that flow with the auto attack combo and helps to spawn more ice blades. So in general, this would be like one of the gear pieces I have found so far for this build. But like, I can't stress it enough, the gear really doesn't matter for this build when you're doing bosses or group content, because your cooldowns are just spamming and it doesn't really matter. I'm currently running the imprinted skills deal up to 56% increased damage based on your available primary resource cost because we spend 0 of it. It's always max, so it's just a free 56 damage all the time. Just super useful. We're also running Lucky Hit. When you hit a crowd-controlled enemy, there's a 48% chance the crowd control effect spreads to affected enemies, and that just helps us with the freezing and getting all the bonuses from freezing things. And it's a good one to have in this build all around. Then we just have an increased 20% increased critical strike chance, just because who doesn't want more critical strike chance? And it also makes our CC last 40% longer, which I find really nice. If I'm using that right. It's either against me as a negative or against them. I think it's against them, but someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Then I have you deal 30% more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies, because everything we're doing is frozen, for the most part. Or immobilized is a lot of the trash. This just helps you plow through lower level mobs and all the ads that are in some elite fights, so you can get back to just putting all your damage on the target that really matters. As far as stat priority goes, you're really going to want +1 to all defensive, would really save you a lot of skill points. +1 to lightning spear would also save you another point, which I got lucky to get. You could also find a +1 to just frost shield if you're going to run the teleport one, to also save you another point if you can't get the +1 to all defenses. You're going to want plus cold damage, +2 lucky hit chance, plus to crit, plus damage to frost skills as a thing as well. And if you guys know of any other prefixes or anything like that that you think would be useful for this build, or any other legendaries that I have not come across, you can put it in the description below. That was my phone. And I would love to hear it, because I like to update my build guides. And this is just stage 1 of beta. We're figuring it out together. We're going to make this a wonderful build. Hopefully I explained this good enough for you to at least try it and start to comprehend it, and start a discussion in the comments what things we could do to improve it. And just give this weird little mashup of nonsense skills a try. And you'll see that it's actually pretty darn good. I definitely think it's better than the Hydra. I have a friend with a lightning build that he's min-maxed and does ludicrous damage on, but only versus single target. And when you start getting into groups and AoEs, he starts to drop off, and he has a long 40-second cooldown on his ultimate because he depends on that. But man, this thing is a really solid, sustained DPS build, and I've never seen anyone else doing it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And I really just, my voice is dying because I never talk this much, and this is a long video for me to make. And, yeah, I'm just gonna... There should have been cards up here. I think the 20 seconds has already passed. So everyone, dig fig out! I'll see you all in the next one.